The laughter echoed through the busy garage as a group of luxury car owners mocked the quiet mechanic in worn-out coveralls. One customer tossed his keys onto the greasy floor and sneered that someone who looked so poor should never be allowed to touch $1 million sports car. Other workers stood silently, too afraid to defend the humble mechanic. Nobody noticed that the elderly founder of the company was watching everything from a distance. By the end of that day, the people who had humiliated the poor mechanic would discover a truth that would leave the entire garage speechless. Before this emotional journey begins, if you believe kindness, respect, and second chances can change lives, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise. Your support helps us continue creating inspiring stories that remind us never to judge someone by appearances. Silas Rowan had worked at Monarch Performance Garage for nearly 6 years. Every morning before sunrise, he prepared breakfast for his 7-year-old son, Noah, packed his school lunch, and dropped him off before arriving at the garage. Since losing his wife in a sudden illness, Silas had quietly devoted every moment of his life to raising Noah with love, patience, and honesty. His old work boots, faded uniform, and grease-stained hands made him look like an ordinary mechanic, but few people knew that years earlier he had been one of the country's most gifted automotive engineers. After his wife's passing, Silas walked away from a prestigious engineering career because constant travel kept him away from his son. He chose a simple mechanic's position that allowed him to finish work every afternoon and never miss Noah's school events. Although he earned far less than before, he never regretted the decision. Watching his son smile at the end of each day meant more than any executive office or impressive salary. One bright morning, Monarch Performance Garage prepared for its largest client event of the year. Wealthy collectors from across the country arrived with rare hypercars worth millions of dollars. Television crews filmed every corner of the showroom while customers proudly displayed their expensive vehicles. Silas quietly focused on routine inspections, avoiding attention as he always did. Among the visitors was Damian Cross, a wealthy businessman famous for looking down on anyone he considered beneath him. The moment he saw Silas carrying a worn toolbox, he laughed loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. He questioned whether someone dressed like that could possibly understand a vehicle worth several $1 million. To make matters worse, he deliberately dropped his luxury car keys onto the oil-stained floor beside Silas and sarcastically told him to be careful not to scratch anything because replacing the paint would cost more than the mechanic earned in years. Several employees looked away in embarrassment. Silas calmly picked up the keys, wiped away the dirt with a clean cloth, and politely thanked Damian before beginning a careful inspection of the vehicle. He refused to answer cruelty with anger because he had promised himself long ago that Noah would grow up seeing dignity instead of bitterness. While inspecting the car, Silas noticed something alarming. A tiny structural defect hidden beneath the rear suspension could cause complete failure if the vehicle reached high speed. He immediately informed the service manager, recommending that the owner avoid driving until the problem was repaired. Damian laughed again, accusing Silas of inventing expensive repairs simply because he could never afford a car like his. Ignoring the warning, Damian climbed into the driver's seat and prepared to leave the garage. Before he could drive away, an elderly gentleman quietly stepped forward from the crowd and asked everyone to stop. The employees immediately recognized him. It was Theodore Winslow, the retired founder of Monarch Performance Garage, who had unexpectedly visited the event without announcing himself. Theodore calmly requested that the vehicle undergo one final inspection before leaving. Curious guests gathered around as he personally asked Silas to explain the mechanical issue. Using simple, confident language, Silas described the hidden defect and the dangerous consequences if it remained unnoticed. Theodore listened carefully, then smiled in quiet recognition. He turned toward the crowd and revealed something no one expected. The humble mechanic standing before them was not just another employee. He was the brilliant engineer who had designed the suspension system used in nearly every championship vehicle Monarch had built during the previous decade. The laughter stopped instantly. The entire garage fell silent as Theodore Winslow finished speaking. The wealthy customers who had laughed only minutes earlier stared at Silas Rowan in disbelief. Many of the younger employees had never seen the company's original engineering archives and had no idea that the quiet mechanic standing before them had once been one of the greatest automotive designers in Monarch's history. Damian Cross slowly lowered his eyes, realizing the man he had mocked understood his supercar better than anyone else in the building. To remove every doubt, Theodore asked the senior technicians to place Damian's vehicle on the inspection lift. Silas carefully removed the rear suspension cover while dozens of people watched. Within minutes, the hidden defect became visible. A tiny crack inside a critical suspension component had begun spreading through the metal. At normal speeds it might have survived for days, but under extreme acceleration the part could have snapped without warning, causing a catastrophic crash. Gasps spread through the garage as everyone understood how close Damien had come to disaster. Damien stood frozen beside his car. For the first time in years, his wealth offered no protection against the truth. The mechanic he had humiliated had not embarrassed him in return or ignored the dangerous defect. Instead, Silas had calmly tried to save his life despite being treated with complete disrespect. Theodore then shared the story that very few people knew. Years earlier, Silas had led the engineering team responsible for developing Monarch's championship-winning suspension technology. His brilliant designs had earned the company international recognition and billions in contracts. But when his wife became seriously ill, Silas resigned from his executive engineering position to care for her full-time. After her passing, he refused every offer to return to management because he wanted a job that allowed him to raise his young son, Noah, without sacrificing the moments that mattered most. To Silas, being present at school plays, birthdays, and bedtime stories was worth more than prestige or a larger paycheck. Many employees quietly wiped away tears. They had spent years working beside him without ever knowing the sacrifices hidden behind his humble smile. Theodore admitted that he had secretly kept Silas on the team because he believed character was far more valuable than titles. He wanted younger employees to learn that greatness is measured not only by talent but by integrity. Deeply ashamed, Damien stepped forward and sincerely apologized. He admitted that he had judged a man's worth by his clothes instead of his character. Silas accepted the apology without bitterness. He explained that holding on to anger only creates more pain, while forgiveness gives everyone a chance to become better. His calm response impressed the crowd even more than his engineering expertise. Inspired by what he had witnessed, Theodore announced a major change across the entire company. Every employee, from apprentices and mechanics to engineers and executives, would receive equal respect and the opportunity to contribute ideas. Job titles would never again determine whose voice deserved to be heard. The announcement was met with loud applause throughout the garage. Several months later, Monarch Performance Garage became known not only for restoring the world's finest automobiles but also for creating one of the most respectful workplaces in the industry. Silas accepted a new position mentoring young engineers while keeping the same daytime schedule so he could continue raising Noah. Every afternoon, father and son walked home together, proving that success means little if it costs the people you love most. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise for more inspiring stories. Special request: please comment. Respect everyone because you never know their story. As the evening sun reflected across the polished cars inside the garage, Theodore smiled quietly. The greatest repair completed that day had not been a suspension system. It had been the hearts of people who finally learned that true value is never measured by wealth, appearance, or job titles, but by compassion, humility, and the courage to do the right thing when no one expects. News of what happened at Monarch Performance Garage spread far beyond the city. A customer who had witnessed the incident uploaded a video showing how the quiet mechanic had remained calm despite being mocked and how he had ultimately saved a man's life. Within days, millions of people had watched the story. Viewers were deeply moved, not because of the expensive supercar, but because of Silas Rowan's humility. Thousands of comments praised the single father who chose kindness over pride, even when he had every reason to prove others wrong. The overwhelming response transformed the reputation of Monarch Performance Garage. Customers no longer visited only because of its technical excellence. They came because they trusted the people who worked there. Theodore Winslow insisted that every new employee learn Silas's story during orientation. It became a reminder that respect was not a company policy written on paper but a value demonstrated through everyday actions. Mechanics, engineers, apprentices, receptionists, and executives began working together with a new sense of unity, knowing that great ideas could come from anyone. Damien Cross returned to the garage several weeks later, but this time he arrived without arrogance. Instead of driving another luxury car, he came carrying a donation for the community youth workshop where Silas volunteered on weekends. He quietly admitted that the experience had changed the way he treated people. Rather than offering expensive gifts to Silas personally, he chose to sponsor free automotive training for teenagers who dreamed of becoming mechanics and engineers but could not afford the education. Silas appreciated the gesture because it created opportunities for young people instead of rewarding him alone. At home, life remained beautifully simple. Every afternoon, Silas picked up Noah from school, and together they spent hours building small wooden race cars on the old workbench in the garage behind their house. Noah listened proudly as neighbors spoke about his father with admiration, but Silas always reminded him that being respected was never the goal. Doing the right thing, even when nobody was watching, was what truly mattered. Those quiet evenings became the greatest reward for every sacrifice he had made through the years. One sunny weekend, Monarch organized its annual family open house. Employees brought their loved ones to tour the workshop, watch live demonstrations, and celebrate the people behind the company's success. Theodore surprised everyone by unveiling a bronze plaque near the main entrance. It honored Silas not for designing championship-winning vehicles, but for reminding an entire company that character is more valuable than talent and humility is stronger than pride. As the crowd applauded, Noah ran into his father's arms with tears of happiness, knowing the world had finally recognized the man he had always admired. Silas looked around the busy garage filled with smiling families, hardworking mechanics, young apprentices, and grateful customers. He realized that the greatest engine he had ever repaired was not hidden beneath the hood of a supercar. It was the human heart. One act of patience had transformed anger into respect, pride into humility, and strangers into a community that cared for one another. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes that kindness always wins, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise for more emotional stories that inspire hope. Special request. Please comment, kindness always outshines pride. As the golden evening sunlight reflected across the polished cars outside the garage, Silas smiled quietly while walking home hand in hand with Noah. He understood that true wealth had never been measured by expensive cars, powerful titles, or bank accounts. It was measured by the love of a child, the respect earned through integrity, and the lives changed by choosing compassion when the world expected revenge.